Nobody seems to remember there's a thing called a sense of humor, not the least of which is the bullying thing that was at the Outhouse Correspondents dinner the other night. How it's gone from the White House Correspondents dinner to the Outhouse Correspondents dinner under a Margaret Talev from Bloomberg News is beyond me. But I think they should shut it down. A friend of mine called and said, you have to watch this woman. She's destroying the Correspondents dinner. She is so disgusting. She is so vile. She is so pornographically vile. I said, no, she isn't. To them, she isn't vile. This is what they say to each other behind the scenes. You're telling me that they don't talk like that to each other? I disagree with you. That is what they do with each other. This is how filthy and dirty they are. But, I once did a show on what is comedy. It was June 7th, 2017. I did a show on from Who's on First to Who Murdered Trump. And some of the questions I asked you was this. Speaking of the Outhouse Correspondents dinner of filth by the female bully. I asked these questions about comedy because I've been interested in comedy since the first grade of grammar school. When did comedy turn from jokes to political violence? What do you think of when you hear names like Bob Hope, George Burns, and now the likes of this dirtbag? When was the last time a comedian's joke actually made you laugh a genuine belly laugh? How much comedy do you watch or listen to? Do you enjoy going to comedy clubs to see stand-up? And what kind of comedy do you go to see in person? How has comedy changed your life? What are some of your favorite classic comedians? You go back to Mort Saul, for example, who I grew up on. Not a dirty word passed that man's lips, and he was a king of comedy. Not a dirty word left his mouth. Jerry Lewis, one of the greatest, not a dirty word left his mouth. And so now we've reached a point where they have no sense of humor, because most of them are drug addicts, and as a result, they resort to filth to draw a laugh. The dirtier, the better. About body parts, about sex change, attacking Republicans, attacking Mormons, attacking Christians. This is the stock and trade of the unfunny comedians. And so we could talk about comedy. We've gone from comedy to vile bullying. But what is comedy? What kind of genres are there in comedy? There's alternative comedy, anecdotal comedy, black comedy, dark comedy, blue comedy, cringe comedy. What's that mean? Deadpan comedy, improvisational comedy, insult comedy. Remember him? Who was the king of insult comedy? Mockumentary, musical comedy, physical comedy, where people use physical movement and gestures like a clown. There is prop comedy of the type used by NBC News when they're faking the news. That's prop comedy. There is heritage comedy, where people use a stereotype about their own race or culture. There's the sitcom, which is, of course, you know what that is. Surreal comedy, topical comedy, witty and wordplay. And I tend to use wordplay, which is more intellectual forms based on subtle manipulation of language and puns. I find that the highest form of comedy is playing with words. By the way, it's interesting to note that this is quite cultural. Every society on earth has a form of comedy, and they're different than most societies. In the more primitive societies, clownishness is the kind of comedy that is used. Rarely have we seen this level of filth and degeneracy that we are now seeing in the United States of America. Okay. Should I play one piece from the Outhouse Correspondents dinner? I said I wouldn't. All right, start it for a minute. She's one of the most... There's something about her face, this one, the Outhouse girl, that turned me off immediately. The self-congratulatory tone, the snideness, reminded me of Rachel Maddow in the beginning. Rachel Maddow used to have the sneer and the self-satisfied grin, the self-satisfied sneer and delivery of the so-called comedienne, Michelle Wolf. You can't say comedienne. I guess they're all comedians, not comedians. There's no such thing as a gender in comedy, because there's no comedy at all, so there's no gender. Let's hear 13, just for a moment.
And of course we have Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We are graced with Sarah's presence tonight. I have to say I'm a little starstruck. I love you as Aunt Lydia on The Handmaid's Tale. Every time Sarah steps steps up to the podium, I get excited because I'm not really sure what we're going to get. You know, a press briefing, a bunch of lies, or divided into softball teams. It's shirts and skins, and this time don't be such a little bitch, Jim Acosta.
Do you understand any of this?
I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash
All right,
to
turn
create
around. You know, this is a
perfect
girl.
moment.
This is a girl who should have been punished as a child. I can tell you, we try to find out her background, who her parents were, where she might have gone to school, what she did. There's very little about this person. But I can guarantee you the parents indulged her. For example, if she was an infant and smeared her fecal matter on a wall, I'm sure that the parents would have thought it looked like a Picasso and encouraged her to continue smearing it on the wall, because smearing her diaper droppings on a wall would be the equivalent of what the so-called comedian did at the Outhouse Correspondents dinner. At least that's my perspective as a perennial on the Savage Nation.
Savage.